we're tracking a sudden and deeply unsettling development in the investigation surrounding the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, and what just surfaced has sent a ripple of unease through the entire true crime world. On March 10th, former FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer broke her silence with a message that didn't just raise eyebrows, it froze people mid-scroll. This is someone who spent years inside the Bureau, someone who understands how federal cases breathe, how they stall, and how they quietly accelerate behind closed doors. She knows what silence from law enforcement really signals. She knows the difference between a case fading into obscurity and one tightening its grip just before an arrest is made. And what she shared wasn't speculation. It wasn't guesswork. It was a carefully framed question from someone who already understands the outcome. This is a seasoned federal insider pointing directly at a sheriff's office that appears to be rejecting outside assistance, not because the trail has gone cold, but because the destination may already be known. Tonight, we're dissecting every clue, every shift, every quiet move that suggests this case is no longer about searching, but about closing in. What was offered to assist wasn't casual, and it certainly wasn't amateur. It was a full-scale operational blueprint, 41 pages of structured strategy, advanced thermal drone systems capable of detecting body heat across vast desert terrain in total darkness, 25 highly trained search canines, and coordinated grid sweeps led by seasoned field professionals. This wasn't a loose suggestion. It was a precise, formal deployment plan submitted directly to the Pima County Sheriff's Department. And yet, Sheriff Chris Nanos has said absolutely nothing. No acceptance, no rejection, just silence. Not even a formal acknowledgement. The United Cajun Navy is not a random volunteer group. They operate with discipline, structure, and real-world search experience. Their Vice President, Brian Thrasher, laid out in detail exactly what was being offered to aid the search. But instead of engagement, the sheriff's office responded with a statement implying that such efforts should be handled strictly by professionals. That response opens the door to two very different and equally troubling interpretations. Either this is institutional pride blocking outside involvement, or, as Coffindaffer strongly suggests, authorities are already working with knowledge the public hasn't been given. Because if investigators have already shifted their focus from locating a missing person to identifying what happened, then a large-scale physical search may no longer be necessary. And that changes everything. This refusal doesn't stand alone. It's part of a pattern that's been quietly forming for weeks. Even the language coming from officials feels off, unusual, calculated, and potentially misleading. When law enforcement publicly claims they are getting closer and references active leads, it typically signals a major transition. It means they've moved beyond sorting through endless tips and noise. It means the investigation has entered a far more focused phase, where evidence is being cross-checked, digital footprints are being traced, and forensic analysis is tightening the circle. This is the stage where cases don't expand, they narrow. And when that happens, it usually means one thing: the endgame has already begun. The first warning sign is buried in the exact words Sheriff Nanos chose when he stated investigators are definitely closer to identifying those responsible. It wasn't casual reassurance, it sounded like controlled disclosure. The second signal lies in how the task force has been reshaped. The visible FBI footprint may appear smaller on the surface, but behind the scenes, for Pima County Sheriff's detectives, along with a supervising sergeant, are now embedded full-time inside the FBI's Tucson field office. That's not what a case looks like when it's fading out. It's what it looks like when it's tightening in. This is a precision unit operating on targeted intelligence, not speculation. Coffindaffer didn't hesitate to describe it in one phrase: a red-hot case. A red-hot case, driven by as many as 100 agents, analysts, local deputies, and federal personnel all zeroing in on leads that are no longer theoretical, but actionable. Red-hot. The third signal comes from a move that might seem routine to outsiders, but speaks volumes to investigators: the decision to return Nancy Guthrie's vehicle back to her family. In investigative reality, that only happens once every inch of that vehicle has been processed, every fiber tested, every surface examined, and every trace of evidence extracted. Nothing left to pull. The fourth signal is even more telling: the FBI quietly returning to Nancy's neighborhood, knocking on doors again, revisiting the same homes. But this time, they aren't asking broad questions. This time, they know exactly what they're hunting for in security footage and witness recollections. In the first 48 hours, those canvases are built on uncertainty, rough timelines, incomplete movements, scattered fragments. But as data begins to flow in, cell phone pings, retail purchase logs, transaction timestamps, that blurry timeline starts to sharpen into something precise. What once felt irrelevant suddenly becomes critical. A passing figure, a parked car, a single moment caught on a doorbell camera that didn't matter before, but now fits perfectly into place. The fifth signal is hidden in the suspect's identifiable features, details Coffindoffer specifically pointed out: the shape of the eyebrows, the presence of a mustache, and most strikingly, a distinct pinky ring captured in footage. Small details, but the kind that anchor identification. The sixth signal is the staggering $1.2 million reward now looming over this case, a number that doesn't just attract tips, it creates pressure. Real psychological pressure. Because if more than one person is involved and all signs suggest that possibility, then the dynamic changes completely. The tension builds. The silence becomes unbearable. It turns into a waiting game where trust erodes by the hour. As Coffindoffer described it, anyone involved is now sitting in unbearable heat, and eventually someone breaks. These cases rarely collapse from the outside, they crack from within. One mistake, one argument, one person deciding they're done, and suddenly that reward becomes an escape route. The seventh signal traces back to something deceptively ordinary, the Walmart backpack lead. Investigators have already pulled records tied to every Ozark Trail hiker pack sold within a critical window. That's not a broad net, that's targeted filtering. And finally, the eighth signal, the one that ties everything together, is the digital convergence. Cell phone records, tower connections, Wi-Fi probe data is silently logged by nearby networks. All of it is being layered, cross-referenced, and reconstructed. When these signals align, they don't suggest uncertainty, they point toward inevitability. A case doesn't move like this unless it's approaching something concrete. As those data streams continue to merge, phone activity, retail tracking, clothing identification, each thread is being pulled tighter at the same time. Any device that appeared in that area on January 11th and then surfaced again on February 1st isn't just noted, it's prioritized, isolated, and scrutinized. And when a case reaches this level of focus, it's no longer a question of if an arrest is coming. It's a question of when. Jennifer Coffindoffer is drawing a chilling parallel to the case of Brian Kohberger, a man who believed he had erased himself from the scene, who moved with confidence under the assumption that he was untouchable until the data caught up with him. It wasn't one single mistake that exposed him, it was the convergence. DNA aligns with digital footprints. Cell records syncing with movement patterns. A silent web was tightening until there was nowhere left to hide. And now, that same pattern appears to be unfolding again. We are entering week 6 in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, and this is the phase where investigations stop expanding and start closing in. This is where the noise fades and the focus sharpens. Behind the scenes, analysts are connecting timelines, matching signals, and reconstructing movements down to the smallest detail. What once looked like scattered fragments is now forming a complete picture, and whoever is at the center of it may not even realize how close that picture is to being finished. If you know something, anything, you need to act now. Call 1-800-CALL-FBI, because that $1.2 million reward isn't just sitting there, it's waiting for the one person willing to break the silence. And in cases like this, silence doesn't last forever. Because when everything finally converges, when the evidence locks into place the way it did before, it doesn't end quietly. It ends with a knock on the door.